Welcome to Wisdom for the Wilderness, a weekly podcast by the pastors of Overland Church, where we discuss things like theology, cultural issues, just common questions that we get about the Bible. And generally, this is just a tool that we use to disciple the people in our church. And so here's a question that I think no one's asking me this question.
Yeah, but they need to ask.
This is a question people need to ask.
Yeah.
And so I wanted to bring this up. So we take questions every week. This is a question I'm proposing.
Okay.
And this is the question. How do you know when it's time to leave a church? Right?
Yeah.
How do you know it's time to leave a church? Now, as a pastor of a church, I watch people leave churches, leave our church. But I also watch people leave other churches and come to our church.
Right.
And often, like, I see a pattern where there's a hopping from one to the other.
Yeah.
And so the question would become, and I would just propose this to our people who I'm sure there's some families in our church right now that are considering leaving. And there would be some families possibly coming to our church right now that they're trying to figure out whether they should leave. So I think this is a great discussion to have, and one that's just not had often.
Yeah, and when we have those discussions in membership interviews or just kind of getting to know new visitors to Overland, you'll quickly find out, well, I'm coming from such and such church. And sometimes people are very willing to share those reasons. Sometimes they're not. But often when they do share those reasons, you start to think, I don't know if that is actually a legitimate reason for you to make this move.
Right.
And when somebody then comes into Overland, for example, because of those specific reasons, then a lot of times it's just a matter of time before they leave Overland.
That's right.
For similar reasons to go somewhere else. And so that's where you get the church hopping happening, because people haven't processed what is a legitimate reason to leave a church. What are reasons to stay and stick things out even when things aren't exactly the way I would prefer for them to be?
Right. So I think this is just a good conversation to have. And so, there are some very obvious and good reasons to leave a church. And, often when I'm having that conversation with people, I can figure that out really quick. Like, okay.
Yeah.
Especially if a church isn't teaching truth. And so
That's right.
If you think marks of a healthy church, the series that we've been going through, there's some pretty big marks in there that become apparent really quick. But if a church isn't teaching biblical truth, there's a departure from biblical truth. There's a departure from the inerrancy or infallibility of Scripture. They've left orthodoxy.
Right.
Get out of there.
That's right. If they are flying the rainbow flag and posting "Love is love," then that church is gone.
Love is louder.
Yeah.
There's a sign down the road that says "Love is louder."
Yep. That church is gone. It's not a church anymore. Find yourself an actual church.
Right. It's not a church. It's a false church.
Yeah.
Right. So there's a big one. There's some sort of compromise to the gospel.
Right.
They're preaching another gospel. We'll talk about that in a few podcast episodes from now. But whether it be legalism, adding in works-based salvation, or maybe it's an abuse of grace. I think that's
or prosperity gospel, or I think one of the big false gospels that not a lot of people are talking about right now is replacing the gospel with discipleship and compassion or social justice ministries, where all the church becomes is a place where you're supposedly following Jesus by doing good works, and so. And you go there, you don't hear about the cross. You don't hear about repentance and faith.
You don't hear about sin. Like if here's one of the ways I've seen kind of like the code word that's become for sin is brokenness.
Right.
Because brokenness is offensive.
Yes.
And so you'll hear pastors say, "We're all broken." And everybody can kind of like look at themselves and go, yeah, there's some broken pieces
Right.
about me. There's brokenness in the world, but
Yeah.
no, to call it sin, it's rebellion against
Yeah.
God.
Yeah.
It's brokenness, all right.
Yeah,
It's
the
sin,
brokenness is caused by the sin.
sin,
The brokenness is just the symptom, it's not the
right?
disease.
Disease, right? And so if the church isn't willing to address sin or to call sin,
Yeah.
and once they kind of, I mean, these things, by the way, I mean, this is a chain effect, right? It's a
Right.
cause and effect. And so when you depart from biblical truth and you become kind of unashamed to preach the Bible,
Mhm.
then you're going to start compromising the gospel.
Yep.
I was recently at a church service where they just came so close to the gospel.
Mm.
They would not bring the
Yeah.
gospel up.
Yeah.
And they ended up preaching a false gospel.
One of the kind of health markers of this is always a church's missions program. And so when the missions program is all mercy ministries and no church planting, no
No evangelism.
evangelism, then that's probably pointing to the fact that that's a church in the process of losing touch with the gospel.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. When it's merely social outreach,
Yep.
and man, their social score. There's a ton you can go into that, and
Mm.
I think maybe would be um, a great podcast to do. What is the difference between the social justice kind
Yeah.
of movement that happened in the churches that started out in a good place, but
Mm.
liberalism came in and destroyed it? To now, I won't use the words. I use compassion ministry or
Right.
ministries of mercy. Like but we're talking about at the heart the same thing. We should talk
Mhm.
about that in
Yeah.
the future. Um, I would just really throw in substitutionary atonement
Yeah.
right now, and
Mhm.
substitutionary atonement is not a cool thing in the cool hip
Yeah.
world, and people are churches are starting to leave out substitutionary
Yeah.
atonement.
Another topic for
Another
another day.
day.
We've got to
That
dig into what we mean by
what
penal
penal
substitutionary
substitutionary
atonement and what the other things that you might encounter in
counter.
other
Yeah.
churches are.
But if you've been listening to my preaching over the last 6 months, I've probably said penal substitutionary atonement 50 times.
Yeah.
Um, because that's what I'm kind of battling it
Yeah.
in my preaching. I would say, from there, because there would be some other churches that absolutely would stand up and say that. And by the way, all churches are saying they're preaching the Bible. You have
Right.
to discern. You have to discern that for yourself.
Yep.
And are they really using the scripture? Is it the scripture in the right context?
Mm.
Are they given a fair treatment of the scripture? But there would be good churches that are preaching the Bible, that are teaching the gospel, but yet have some real issues, and
Yeah.
so leadership issues, somewhat of a unhealthy culture in the church
Mm.
that could just not be a good fit for you and your family. So, man, this isn't only true in churches. It's true in businesses. It's true
Yeah.
in workplaces. But leadership is hard,
Yeah.
and in leadership, there can be some really unhealthy, toxic, overused word, but toxic
Mhm.
culture, authoritarianism.
Yeah.
And so this goes back to the marks of a healthy church, biblical leadership. Is
Right.
there is your pastor in submission to a plurality of elders and leadership?
Yeah.
Can your pastor be approached?
Right.
Or if every time you approach your pastor, does he just go off on you and
Mm.
spiritually manipulate you? Like that's not healthy.
That's right. That's right. And I think on the kind of another manifestation of that we see is maybe the pastor is good, but the church, the actual church leadership is not good. So sometimes there's a lot of
Yeah.
times in congregationally led churches like Baptist churches where the pastor is not the real leader of the church. It's
Right.
grandpa so and so
Right.
or deacon so and so.
Right.
And
This would be typically these are older churches, not
Yeah.
church plants. The opposite problem happens often in church plants,
Yeah.
but they don't have biblical leadership because they're deacon ruled or
Yep.
deacon led, and half the times when in a lot of those churches when deacons were appointed, they weren't being appointed to be elders; they were
Hmm.
meeting the qualification of deacon. And then two, even then it was more of a popularity contest. And
Yep.
they're like, well, Bob runs a good business.
And gives a lot.
So Bob should be a deacon. Bob knows how to run a business, surely knows how to run a church.
Yep.
And the two things aren't the same.
Yep.
Running a church. We do a lot of things in the church that aren't logical.
Yeah. Yeah. And
we give away a lot of money.
And
Businesses don't give away a lot of money.
when you have that leadership that doesn't really understand ministry, then you lose that 12th mark, the God glorifying aim of the church.
Right.
And all these little things become the most important things. And the struggle of leadership is the main things to keep the main thing the
Right.
main thing.
Yep. Yeah. And so, man, there's other things I can think of where a church can just adopt an aim and a mission that you just don't feel connected to.
Yeah.
Like they do say, hey, we're gonna make this our goal, and you're looking at it and you're going, I don't know that that's the biblical aim of the
Mhm.
church, and I don't know that's the best fit for me. And so I think when a church doesn't have a biblical aim and they're not doing discipleship, they're not doing missions, they're not doing evangelism, then those are times where you should question and go, okay, should I go be a part of a
Yeah.
healthier church? Now, some of that's subjective,
Right.
right? Some of that's
Right.
subjective.
Yeah.
And are they trying?
Yeah.
And are they trying? Is the leadership trying to do it, but people are being resistant to it? Because that happens a ton.
Yeah, you have to
in churches.
use your wisdom and pray through some of these instances where, am I going to stick around and be part of the solution, or is this so far gone that I need to give up on it? I need to
Right.
shake the dust off my feet.
Right.
And that can be a very subjective and difficult decision. It ought to be a difficult decision.
So let's hold that thought right
Okay.
there and come back to it,
Yeah.
because I think that's where we really need to dig in and spend some time in
Yeah.
this question of, do I stick here and help fix the problem,
Yeah.
or do I leave and go somewhere else?
That's right.
So let's just quickly say, what are some bad reasons to leave a church?
You just don't like the music style. The pastor didn't, shake your hand in the right way, or, wear the right shirt, or, you just didn't connect with the pastor's wife like you thought you should. Like there's just a lot of superficial things. And a lot of people, and this is one that can be good and can be bad. The kids and youth ministry is a major issue that people switch churches over.
That's right.
Um,
Because especially in our culture, where there's a bit of worship around kids and some idolatry around kids, if your kid's not happy, you're not happy. So
Yep.
if you're going to play the game of, I've got to jump to whatever church makes my kid happy,
right.
you're never going to be rooted in a church. And I hate to tell you this, when your kid goes to college, they're probably not going to be in church.
Yeah.
You're going to have jumped around. Your kid's not going to be discipled, not going to have these deep relationships
Yep.
because you never stayed. So,
Yeah.
especially there's a consumerism that comes in our culture and churches, and that consumerism, man, it really is unhealthy, and that's
Yeah.
two of the biggest places that.
Yeah, there are some churches, smaller, older churches that have nothing for kids and youth, and they're not going to have anything because they don't
Right.
have the people. And
there's some fairness to that, right?
Yeah.
Of like, I want my kid to go to church with other kids and be able to
yeah.
to have a faith family that has kids.
On the other hand, as a parent, you have to coach your kids into the youth group. I mean, you can't just say, well, my kid didn't connect. Well, have you pushed them to connect?
Right.
Have you made them go to events even when they didn't want to,
Right.
where they're going to have those connections?
I can tell you as a student pastor, and even at our church, like I'll watch new kids come, and I'll pop in on Wednesday night, and I mean, a lot of kids, they don't want to connect, and they're not telling you this as the parent,
Yeah.
but they're like just clammed off and shut down to it, and won't open up, and like trust me, if you just start bringing them, and even though they come home and they gripe about it, you just keep doing it,
Yeah.
they'll finally give in and start making friends, and it will become
Yep.
a fit. But
That's right.
we train our kids, and I don't just mean I don't mean our Josh and I's kids. I
Yep.
mean the kids in our church. Like if I'm there on a Wednesday night and I see a new person, I can go say to a number of kids, "Hey, go talk to them."
Yep.
And they'll go do it. And most of the time they do even beforehand, you
Yeah.
know, and anyway, I've watched it, but there can be a resistance on the kids' end,
Right.
and that's good to know. So,
Mm.
but the children's program or the student ministry program, you want it to be healthy. You do, but it can't be the only reason
Right.
that you do that. I I would say there's as far as consumerism goes, you know, you mentioned worship style,
Yeah.
worship production. There's a ton of things in there. We've done several podcasts on worship and music, and I think should be a bigger concern if you're singing songs that aren't biblical
Right.
and aren't glorifying God, but are anthropocentric or man-centered and glorifying man. Like that would be the bigger problem of like, you know, you could look at our church. We're a church full of engineers, and the musicians we've got great musicians. We just don't have a ton of great musicians.
Yeah.
Right. We have a short bench. And some of you who are listening to this probably are good musicians, and you need to come tell me that you hey, I play the guitar.
Yeah.
Or I play the bass, or anyway, I'd love to have that conversation. But our production isn't always the best.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's loud. Sometimes
the mic
not,
squeals.
right? You know, is that a good reason to leave? Probably not. It'd be a good reason to have a conversation.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think impatience is a bad reason to leave. But here's where I'm really going to get in. And
Okay.
I think most people, when they leave churches, it's because they got their feelings hurt.
Right.
And they are conflict adverse. And so they just quietly leave without saying anything, without a real conversation. And so a minor conflict is not a good reason to leave a church.
Right. Absolutely.
Some
not.
sort of minor personal offense without seeking reconciliation, or any offense without seeking reconciliation, isn't a good reason to leave a church.
Yeah.
And we are broken people.
Yeah.
And there are no sinful people. There's no world that you live in where you're not going to have some sort of conflict. I don't know why you think the church would be any different. Right? You have conflict in your home.
Or that the church down the road would be any different.
Yeah, because I mean, and that is the reality that a lot of people, when there's some sort of minor conflict, or they don't get their way, or they don't feel heard, they're going to jump to the next one.
Yep.
And they're going to be there until they get into a certain level of leadership, and then they get their feelings hurt again, and you jump to the next one, and you jump to and next thing you know, you have passed through years of life without ever having deep fellowship.
Yep.
And there's going to be, like, when people know, like, oh, they're on their third church, there's a resistance. Like, even as a pastor, I don't want to be this way. I want to just welcome you in and bring you in, but I'm going, it's only going to be a matter of time until you find fault with me.
Yeah, that's right.
You know, especially when I know that you're coming from a good church. I'm like, yeah, that church has got their stuff together way more than us. Like, it's only a matter of time.
If you have a problem with that, pastor, just wait till you get to know me.
Right, right. Right. There's no perfect church. There's no perfect pastor, and if every time there is a minor offense, you jump ship.
Mm,
Or every time, I think this happens often too, where people are like, well, they're just not using my gifting.
yeah.
And well, one, if you're putting off the vibes that every time something goes wrong, you jump ship, am I just supposed to throw you into in our pipeline a
Yeah.
director level?
Yeah.
You know, when Buddy Sampson left his church and he came to Buck Run Baptist Church,
Mm,
and he was eager and zealous and gifted.
yeah.
We made him ride the bench for a year.
Mm, yeah.
We was like, all right, we know you're gifted, but you're going to sit and learn for a year.
Yep. Yeah.
Because that you have to get a level. You can't just throw people fast into
Right. Yeah.
positions.
And there's a level to which, yeah, doing ministry, no matter where you're at, is somewhat the same. But doing ministry at Overland is different than doing ministry at Church X. We
Right.
have our own culture, we have our own language, our own priorities. It's like, some basketball team gets a superstar. Well, yeah, that superstar knows how to play, but do they know how to play that system?
Right.
They got to get acclimated to that
Yeah.
system before they're making a contribution to the team.
And for us as a value of service, like I want to see your servant heart when
Yeah,
you come. I want to see that you're willing to do any
yeah,
task. Buddy was telling me about somebody who's shown up to their church who, like, they moved to town, is extremely gifted, has done a ton of stuff in ministry, and he shows up and he says to him, like, kind of lets them know, but then he says, "Listen, I want to start off like." Is there any janitorial work that needs to be
yeah,
done? What about kids or students workers? And the dude can preach,
yeah,
and he's
yeah.
saying, "Hey, I want to start at the bottom." And Buddy's like, after I got off that phone call, I was like, I wanted to put him in a position of leadership, And I'm like, no, no, no. And of
Yeah,
course, Buddy knew better than that. But like, there's
yep,
something about somebody who comes and says, "Hey, I want to roll up my sleeves and jump in."
yep,
Often we get people who will come and they have done some sort of ministry in the past, and we don't offer that ministry. And then there could be an expectation that we create that
yeah,
ministry.
yeah,
And man, we're spending our time creating everything we can create as fast as we
yeah,
can create it.
yep,
I can't create a ministry for somebody. So um that's a piece of patience. So I think
mhm,
that jumps into the question of, all right, how do I now make the decision? So let's say there are good reasons to leave, but I have to weigh out, can I stay here and be a change agent,
right,
or is it that impossible and should I go somewhere
yeah,
else?
yeah. Yeah, that's a difficult wisdom decision that takes time to filter through. And I've seen that happen again and again. Again, I'm thinking a lot of the rural traditionalist churches where friends of mine in seminary have gone in as pastors, and they've got one or two families that buy in. And they need those families, but at some point even those families give up and they leave and they don't have the buy-in anymore in the congregation. So I mean, if you've got a pastor that you see eye to eye with, he has a vision for the congregation, then I say you stay, you give that guy your time, you give that guy your support. But if at some point it becomes apparent that the majority of the congregation is never going to follow that leadership, then there comes a point where you say, am I going to sacrifice the spiritual health of my family to remain in a church that is dead, or do I go to a place where we can actually be a part of healthy ministry?
Right.
Um,
Eh,
that's a slow
uh,
decision that you need to
right.
make.
I I would say, I mean, there is some level of buy-in that happens at that kind of older church
Mm,
where um it goes far beyond the pastor or the kids worker or
yeah,
the staff. Like, that is your church, and you are bought into that church. And if the pastor leaves, you're not thinking, well, I'm going to go find a different church because I was there for the pastor.
Yeah.
No, the commitment level is, this is my church. This is
Yep.
my ecclesia. This is the people that I gather with, and I'm going to be a part of finding the new pastor or
Yep. Yep.
supporting the new pastor. It's been curious. It's been interesting to me. We've got one of the bigger churches in town. They have a new pastor. Their new pastor just started last week, and I'm seeing people come nearly every week going, yeah, we go to this church. So anyway, we've got a new pastor. We're just checking it out. And I want to, it's not, anyway, I don't want to get into it, but, it's interesting. That happens,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And I mean, most of you listening to this, if you've been at Overland and you're saying Overland's your church, like if I were to get hit by a bus today,
Right.
you shouldn't think, well, I need to see where I'm going to go next. Like, no, you're part of the finding the next pastor.
That's
You're
right.
part of the solution to continue of growing the church. It
Yeah.
can't be just based off of a personality.
Yeah. Yeah.
It should be deeper than that.
Yeah, absolutely. But on the other end, if you're in a church and there are some good things about the church, but there's a pastor that's unbiblical or teaching, like, you're not going to lead the church in a different direction than that pastor.
That's right.
And so at that point, there's not a whole lot of hope for that church unless you're willing to be there for possibly 10, 15 years and wait that guy out and be part of finding the new guy. But that's probably, there's a reason why that church already picked him and called him. And so
I think that's very fair.
Yeah.
That's very fair. If a new pastor comes and he's preaching another gospel, and I would raise question to, hey, this isn't biblical. And when they would take his side, then I would say, then we're removing ourselves from membership or whatever that may look like. I would just go back and say on all the things that, like, well, they don't do small groups well, or they don't do this well, or they don't do that well. Rather than griping about it, be a part of the solution.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I would just, that probably came across as harsh, but there's a reality to, like, no, if I'm really a member, I'm really taking membership serious, and I'm not just consuming, why wouldn't you want to be a part of the solution?
Being part of the solution, though, doesn't mean sitting and griping and, talking about it with people in a corner. It means participation with a good attitude.
Right.
And so if you think, hey, I could be a better small group leader than what I've seen around here, then be a small group leader and contribute and do it well and be an encouragement to others and an example to others. But just sitting around and saying, well, this is bad, and why doesn't Jason, who leads our community groups, do a better job, blah, 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 blah. That's not being a part of a solution.
Right.
Yeah.
That's right. Now I can think of, in saying that, I can think of an instance where somebody, you bring this up, you go to speak to a pastor, hey, I want to be a part of this solution. And the pastor essentially looked at him and said, yeah, we're not changing that. And if you don't like it, you can, I think the exact words were, you can let the door hit you where the good Lord split you. And, and that got said to somebody, and now they're at our church. Like, I think that can go back to a leadership culture issue, right?
Yeah.
But if the pastor's going, hey, let's change it, let's make it better, we're open to it, and the pastor's going, yeah, we know we're not perfect, then I think there's definitely opportunity to stay and try to weather the season and become part of the solution.
Yeah. So
let's just say you are at a spot where you think, all right, we need to depart. What is some just advice that we could give to help people leave a church well?
So don't just leave. Have that conversation with the pastor or other leaders, and maybe you'll find a solution to the reasons that you think you're going to leave. You just haven't talked about it yet.
Yeah.
And at the very least, if you bring this up, you're putting it on their radar. And even if you still leave, maybe they'll become better because of the conversation.
Yeah. Yeah, I would say you gotta have that conversation before you've made up your mind that you should
Right.
leave,
Yeah.
right? I mean, we this happens in marriage counseling all the time. Like couples have problems and they let it get so bad before they ever come asking for help that
Yeah.
it's like they've burnt the thing down and it's ashes and you're expecting us to save it when
Yep.
90% of it's gone.
Yep.
So come or like have the conversation early. Don't just run from conflict. But what I think is really important here is not to just not ghost your church.
Right.
You just stop showing up and don't mention anything
Yeah.
to anybody. And it's
Don't answer the phone, don't answer text
message it.
messages. I mean,
Right.
those are things that happen
Happen.
to us.
Right. And it's awkward for me when I'm like, because I try to keep a look on people, and
Yeah.
especially like there was a period where I was this back in June where there's Malawi
Yeah.
and there I was gone several weeks, and so I didn't know if I was just missing people and they had been
Right.
there, and so but as I can't figure out every week in the church who was here and who wasn't here
Yeah.
based off of
Right.
what I see while I'm preaching
And
or
that's why you need to be in a community
group.
group or a study group, because those people are meant to be the first line of defense. Like if you go missing, then Andrew, your community group leader, is going to be the first one to notice you've fallen off the radar. I
Right.
mean, we discuss this every Monday in a staff meeting.
Have you seen so and so lately?
Yeah.
Maybe I need to check in with them.
But even with 4 of us on staff, it's very easy for us to miss someone.
Right. And often I'll go 6 weeks without seeing somebody. And then they'll show back up and they're like, "Yeah, it's been a crazy season."
Yeah.
Well, I thought I was about to call them and have a conversation and going, "Hey, hadn't seen you guys in a
Yeah.
while." And so then let's say sometimes it'll be 4 weeks and then you'll hear from somebody else, well, they're going to a different church. Oh, it's so disheartening to go,
Yeah.
well, why didn't they say anything on the way out?
Yeah.
Um, I would say another thing that you should do is have a truthful conversation with the pastor
Yeah.
on the way out. So, in relationships, sometimes I've watched like in real immature breakups, it's not you, it's me.
Yeah.
It's not you, it's me. And so people leave the church in the same way. It's like, oh, the church is great. It's wonderful. It's
Uh-huh.
not you, it's me.
Yeah.
But really there was something in the church that wasn't working well that needs to be fixed. But when you don't relay that information because you probably don't want conflict,
Yeah.
that's just not helpful to the kingdom of God when you
Right.
do that.
And I'd say most pastors in the churches that the people we're talking to are in are going to receive that conversation well. I mean, it's gonna hurt, it's gonna
Yeah.
sting, but they're not gonna jump down your throat, and accuse you of something.
Yeah.
We're gonna listen. We're gonna say thank you, and whenever you want to come back, the door's always open, and that's gonna be a peaceful conversation that
Yeah.
you're gonna have.
Multiple times I've had people bring up stuff to me, and on the back end of the conversation, they go, "Thank you so much for the way you responded to that. Thank you so much for the kindness and grace that I felt in having that conversation."
Yeah.
So don't I'm not asking you to knock down my door with complaints. Don't hear
Right,
me hear me
right.
wrong because I'm probably way more aware of them than you are. But still, we do want to know those things and
Yeah.
want to hear those things.
Especially if they're at the level of you saying, this isn't the
Yeah.
right fit for me anymore.
Yeah. And then I would say, man, unity and not causing division and quarrels in the church, like that is just really important.
Yes.
Like the
Yeah.
scripture just speaks of it
Yeah.
a ton. So if you're leaving, don't be divisive and quarrelsome on
Right.
the way out.
Yeah.
Don't lie or slander.
Mm.
I have had multiple times just things fabricated,
Yeah.
just straight up lies, told on the way out. And man, I have really appreciated how when that has happened, and by the way, that's always typically happens when somebody is looking for power and doesn't get it.
Yep.
Um, how our people have defended me or
Mm.
have just said, well, let's go talk to Zach about that. Let's go
Yeah.
sit down and have a conversation, be reconciled. And then when they run from that, it kind of shows, well, maybe something's not
Yeah.
right here.
People have a tendency to develop their little holy huddles where they start broadcasting their complaints, and then the people that they've drawn into that huddle, they're like, oh, I had never really thought about that before, and then all of a sudden that becomes an issue for them, and then that becomes something that spreads. My dad has been a deacon most of my life, and so he has seen this time and time again where people have a problem with the pastor, they come to him and they're like, well, such and such, blah blah, or he didn't show up to the hospital or whatever it is. And my dad, I love him, his immediate response is always, here, I'll take you over to Pastor Ricky, we'll talk to him about it. And so, I mean, he has always been the guy who's like, okay, if you have this problem, let's go talk to him. And that either shuts people up
Or brings reconciliation.
reconciliation.
And reconciliation is what we want. Like
Yeah.
when we say you're not just welcome here, you're wanted here.
Yeah.
Hear this. If you're hearing my voice right now, and I'm sure there's people who listen to this podcast that don't go to Overland Church. I know that. I get text messages, but I think this is probably true of your pastor too.
Yeah.
He wants you to be there. He desires for you to be in fellowship. He desires for discipleship and gospel growth. And man, there are no perfect pastors. We're sinners too, right? And we have bad moments too. And so there just can be reconciliation rather than you having to restart over trying to build community over and over and over.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, I think you need to ask a question. Is this a pattern?
Yeah.
Is this a pattern in my life of every time I run into a bit of a problem that I run from it rather than let me work through it and grow? And man, there's going to be trials. And what does James say? Consider them pure joy.
Yeah.
Because they're going to make us steadfast. They're going to grow us and mature us. And those are good things. And, church hurt is a buzzword right now. And people talk about church hurt. And, there's a legitimate church hurt. There's abuse that has happened in churches. There are awful things that have happened in churches. But so often when I hear about church hurt, it really is somebody didn't get their way.
Yeah. Yeah.
Somebody didn't get their way. And there's, I don't know, probably 500 people who come to Overland on a monthly basis. It's actually over 500 people come to Overland on a monthly basis. Everybody can't have their way. Everybody can't be driving the ship.
Yeah.
It's impossible.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
I want you to know there's tons of times I don't get my way. There's tons of times Josh doesn't get his way. Brandon doesn't get his way. Like, it's just impossible.
And that's just a family dynamic.
Right.
The church is a family. That means you're going to get hurt. That means you're going to have to submit your desires to others' desires. I mean, if I'm on a road trip with my kids and I say, at the next exit, we're going to stop where we're going to eat Taco Bell or Freddy's or whatever, or Chick-fil-A, then I'm going to get, 5 different answers from 5 different children.
Yeah.
And
maybe 6.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
So, I mean, somebody's not going to be happy, but you're a family. So you go through it and this isn't a big deal. I'm going to ride through it. And the next time it might be what I wanted to happen.
Well, I want to say this a couple times. I should even just pull it up and read it, but a couple times I have seen people leave churches and come to our church. And, as pastors, like the pastors in town, we talk to each other, and the pastors talk about the culture that exists in this town of church hopping.
Yeah.
And I'll get a call or whatever, and so just maybe twice now, I've had people leave other churches, and the pastor send me an email and basically say, "Hey, this family is transitioning from our church to your church. They have met with us and talked with us. They have our blessing. We hope that as they move there. We love this family. We bless them. And as they move there, that the Lord continues to use them in our community.
Yeah.
And when a person comes that way,
Mm.
man, it really does benefit
Yeah.
the kingdom.
That's
It
right.
it benefits. So just when you leave, do it right.
Yeah.
When
Yeah.
you leave, do it right. Just don't ghost your church.
That's right. That's right.
So,
Yeah.
all right, Josh. Well, in closing, do you have any words of wisdom for us?
On the front end, choose your church well and wisely, and think, these, we're talking about reasons to leave, reasons to choose a church. Make sure those are the right reasons, and that's going to prevent you on the back end from having bad reasons to leave a church as well.
Yeah.
So maybe that's another conversation that we
we
should
should-
have sometime.
Yeah. Mine is going to be this. Mine is plug in and leave a legacy.
Yeah.
And I just can think of the two former churches that I really have spent most of my life at. A little church called Rock Creek Baptist Church
Mm.
and Buck Run Baptist Church. There were people who had lived their whole lives in that church and had made disciples and taught years worth of Sunday school classes. I mean, I think of Rick Woodruff, who is discipled now hundreds and hundreds of teenage boys.
Mm.
Multiple times he's taken sixth graders through 12th grade and he just moved up with their small group. And I'll take the 12th grader and I'll move back to sixth grade.
Yeah.
And think about the legacy he has.
Mm.
He's got hundreds of kids now that he's plugged in and discipled, and those kids are having kids, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think of like Kyle Hancock, who's a part of our Buck Run, was a part of Buck Run, and then Overland Fort Collins, Overland Durango, and now has his kids, and he's a trustee for the North American Mission Board. And Rick Woodruff discipled him.
Wow.
Yeah. And many since. And so plug in, stay, be committed, leave a legacy.
Yeah.
Don't just sit on the sidelines. Don't just consume. You will get the most out of a local church when you plug in. Listen, we so often think that the grass is greener on the other side. And there's a reality here. The grass is greener where you water it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. Especially in Colorado.
Especially in Colorado. Well, hey, thank you so much for joining us today for Wisdom for the Wilderness. I hope you enjoyed it. Hear our hearts. Know that we love you and care for you, and we want to minister to you, shepherd to you the best that we can. If you have any questions and anything you'd like to have answered, just email us, wisdom@overlandchurch.org. We'd love to answer that question, and we will see you soon. God bless.